What is up, everybody? This is Nerding Out Sports with my co-host, Big Blue in the Bronx. This is going to be fun. We're going to be talking about the big news that's happened today, and that is Daniel Jones is back on a 4-year, $160 million deal. He has got the bag, and Saquon is back. That's good news, too. So the Giants are rolling it back. How do we feel about it? Well, let's find out. We'll hit the music and we will get into the chat. Let's go, Giants. Alex, how are you, man? How are you feeling?
Today was a little bit stressful, Donald. Obviously, everything surrounding these talks. And, we haven't heard a lot over the last few days about Saquon Barkley. And first thing before we get into the nitty gritty, as we will dive in and we'll do a great job of it, is I'm just happy that this stuff is over and we have both of our players from last year back. I know a lot of people feel sour about both, but, having these two guys back is a good sign of continuity, in my opinion. Saquon obviously getting the tag, obviously some financials with Daniel Jones we'll get into, but my first initial reaction without the background crap is I'm happy that these two are back on the team and that we're moving forward.
And my initial thoughts are I'm glad Saquon isn't allowed to test free agency. That's really important to me. As for the Daniel Jones contract, initial thoughts were, oh my God, what an overpay. But then, when you read more about how it's going to be worked and then the guaranteed money, it looks like it's essentially a 2-year deal, and year one is fairly cheap for the cap. So it allows us to build a team around Daniel Jones. So I'm pretty sure that's what Joe Schoen would have set out to do from the beginning. This was obviously what he wanted to do. After this year, he wanted to get a deal done with Daniel Jones to allow them flexibility to tag Saquon and go into free agency with a little bit of money to try and fill some of these holes. So, Joe Schoen will probably be fairly happy with the deal. As for what this means for the Giants long term or even medium term, that's going to be a separate discussion. And what it means for the Giants ceiling, that is another separate discussion, which we'll all get into. But, the initial thoughts are it looks like it's just essentially a 2-year deal, even though it's 4 years at 160. I think it's just 82 guaranteed million. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so what I'm confused about, honestly, Donald, is on Twitter, as we were in a big group chat, our friend Matt said it's 82 million over 2 years. And then someone else said it was 82 million just overall in the contract, which I'd prefer the latter, because if it is 82 million within the first 2 years, that could mean a lot of different things. And, some of it may not be good because they have 19 this year, right, for Daniel Jones, which obviously fits the bill a little bit. Saquon with the 10, that's about 29 million spent this year among the two of them. Obviously, maybe they'll work somewhat with Saquon down the line. But if we're not talking bonuses, we're not talking this, that, and the other thing that doesn't affect the cap. If it's 82 million over 2 years, that means $63 million goes to Daniel Jones and affects our cap situation next year, which I really hope is not the case, as positive as I've kind of been about certain different things regarding this whole thing. Hopefully a lot of that is either just $82 million over the 4 years guaranteed, or it's just, okay, it might be 63 altogether. Just hopefully it's broken down into bonuses and stuff. That way we could go build a team next year, because if it would be 63 and 24, that'd be probably the highest cap hit a quarterback has ever had. And I don't want Daniel Jones to make history like that.
I have a feeling that we are on the hook for like something like 60 odd million in 2024.
I mean,
I think it's a 19 million cap hit year one,
this
and
year.
then the rest of the guarantees is year two.
Yeah. So I wouldn't like that. Now, I guess if you want to be a guy that points out a silver lining, number one is once again with the bonuses and all that, if that is guaranteed. Number two, if they feel confident enough with Jones, they could kind of slide that money down the road, kind of like what they want to do with Leonard Williams, kind of what they want to do with Dory Jackson. But I mean, first of all, just as an overall thought, I know I've been kind of describing all my other thoughts, but I do think it is an overpay. I don't think Daniel
All
Jones is
right.
worth base 40 million. But also, with that being said, if it is $63 million in 24, that's why I'm not in favor of backloading it. Yes, the Giants have like 190, 179 million next year. You need to resign McKinney. You need to resign Dexter Lawrence. You need to resign Saquon on a long term. You need to resign Andrew Thomas. So there's a lot of things that go into that. And once again, I just sincerely hope it's not altogether 63. And, you know, as I said, I'm not in favor of backloading contracts, but if it's like a favorable number, sure. 63 million is a little too much. If that is the case, again, we don't know, but that's the assumption as of right now.
First of all, anyone watching, share it out, like and subscribe. Let's get these. Let's get the numbers up and hit us in the comments, man. Hit us in the chat. What do you think of the contract? Do you like it? Do you think it's an overpay? Are you excited? Okay, so this went right down to the wire with 4 minutes to go. How would you assess how this was all negotiated, and how do you think this was a solid job by Joe Shane? Do you think that maybe he blinked a little bit in the game of poker that was between him and Daniel Jones? And how would you assess Daniel Jones? I wouldn't say behavior, but changing agents and then holding firm on the 4-0 number. How do you feel about all that?
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if the agents really. It obviously changed everything because he wanted to get more money, but I don't know how that suited him because, well, he got 40 million. It's probably the most he was going to get from the other agents. But anyway, in terms of Joe Shane, I kind of got a little. I think it was yesterday. I kind of got a little irritated because this stuff just after the combine kept coming down to the wire. And I'm like, you know what? I started thinking to myself, nobody's talking about this Saquon stuff. I put out a YouTube short. I'm like, you know what? We need Saquon on this team with Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones on this team with Isaiah Hodgins and maybe like one other weapon and new weapons. I mean, that's not a threat to a defense right away. Saquon, obviously, he's a threat to a defense. You know, him and Jones obviously put that together this past year. So I do think that that he kind of lost a little bit of leverage with the whole, he's going to be here in 23 and all this sort of stuff. And like that's great confidence. Like that's great confidence for the Giant fans. But when you're saying that, and then you got to go into the negotiation room with Daniel Jones and his new agents, that doesn't really work out on a business standpoint. I'd rather, to be personal, I'd rather you lie to the fans a little bit than go in negotiations and kind of lose your leverage. So I didn't like that this had to go down to the literal wire. Now, to be fair, within the last hour, I was not paying attention to Twitter because I was in class watching a movie, but I kind of was glad because I'm like, okay, I guess at 5 o'clock, I will know if Daniel Jones is a Giant or not. Same thing goes with Saquon Barkley. They got it done, but I personally would have liked for them to tag Barkley first. Now, once again, it happened, but you think about it, the tag deadline is a soft deadline. They were going to tag Barkley either way. It's just today was a soft deadline for the Daniel Jones extension, and they could have, kept these talks going through Monday, of course, the non-exclusive stuff. But anyway, I just thought it could have been handled a little bit better, but I'm happy that things are done.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot to this. First of all, I agree. I think Joe Shane gave up his leverage. The original presser where he said, "Oh yeah, DJ is our guy. He's definitely coming back next year." When you say that, it kind of just puts the ball in the court of Daniel Jones and his agents. And this was before they knew that Daniel Jones was then going to move from CAA to player first, and then his demands became quite clear. Daniel Jones did say right after the season, he said, "We aren't particularly close, and we'll see." As in regards to the Giants, so he kept his cards close to his chest, but Joe Schoen did the exact opposite. And so let's be honest. I think Daniel Jones won the game of poker between the two. And Daniel Jones set out. He wanted to get paid, and he most certainly has gotten paid. It's a remarkable contract that he's gotten. Now, you could argue, obviously, if you're a Daniel Jones fan, you could argue, hey, listen, there's probably not going to be that much of a big deal, say, in even 12 months' time. There's probably going to be a bunch of quarterbacks that are going to be signed, and then it's not going to look all that much of an overpay. But I don't really love that anyway, because it doesn't actually necessarily mean that Joe Schoen needs to jump into those waters anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless. So that's kind of my first thoughts on that. I think Joe Schoen kind of lost the game of poker a little bit. What I would have done as the GM is I would have sat down with Saquon and would have been like, okay, take it or leave it, 13 mil per year for the next 3 years. Take it or leave it, right? If he says leave it, then you tag him. Okay. So I would have done that first. I would have made that a priority, just like you, Alex. But what I would have preferred to have done is to tie him down to a contract. So again, I wouldn't have wanted my best player to be left with just like 2 minutes to go before the tag, before deadline. I'm not sure if that's really my strategy that I would do. The first thing I would have done with Daniel Jones is, so when I sat down and his agent says, "Oh, I'm demanding $45 million," the very first thing I would have done is I would have laughed him out the building. But no, what I would have done is I would have set the non-exclusive transition tag on him. Exactly what the Ravens are doing with Lamar Jackson. And if the Ravens can do that with an MVP caliber quarterback, why can't the Giants do that with an average quarterback? I think that Daniel Jones means more to the Giants than he would around the league. I think he means more to John Mara. I think he means more to the organization. I think he means more to the fan base than he would if he tested the market. And that's what I would have done. I would have had him test the market with that non-exclusive tag. If someone puts in a contract offer, we have the opportunity to match it. I will bet my bottom dollar that no team would have come close to $40 million per year at $160 million over 4. I would have been shocked, because you look at all the teams that need quarterbacks. They're going to be in on Anthony Richardson. They're going to be in CJ Stroud, and they're going to be in on Will Levis, and they're going to be in on Young. And those are the guys they're going to be in on. And then there's Lamar Jackson in the market. There's Aaron Rodgers in the market. There are far better quarterbacks in the market. And that's what I would have called Daniel Jones' bluff. I'd have been like, okay, hey, listen, man, if you think you're worth that, you test the market. I've got the tag on you, and I've got the rights to match any offer. If I don't match that, I get 2 first-round picks back, and then all the live long day. Then I can go and get the new guy in. I think that the Giants called their bluff early by just declaring that they were already all in on him without really doing the work as to what's the value here. And I think we've kind of gone beyond the point where this was good value. I think it was an overpay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of breakdown there. So, first off, I think that as much as it is his second year, and I'm not defending him, I think this is Joe Schoen's rookie mistake, the negotiation part. Who last year did he have to go out there and negotiate fiercely with? He didn't have anybody. You did mention the part just recently about how the Giants kind of gave up their bluff or whatever. And, I agree with that. Also, shout outs to Luca and Hanu's mom in the chat.
Oh, Hanu's mom. Good to see you.
With that being said, though, because you did
Insult
that,
to Saquon, franchise Jones. He's not worth that much. Yeah, that's exactly my opinion. Luca, thank you, my brother. All right.
but because, and this is just stating the real. This is not even just my justification or whatever anyone wants to call it, is Joe Shane now needs to go build a team. He needs to go. I don't know if he recognizes the ceiling. I think there's cons. I think there's silver linings to this, but because you kind of gave up that bluff, you kind of have to recognize a little bit that Daniel Jones is a ceiling and say, listen, okay, we have to go build a team for him and then reevaluate. So, that's kind of where I think they screwed up a little bit as far as that, like, QB market stuff goes. The only, and I kind of hate that argument in a lot of different ways. Like, for instance, number one, Barstool put out something, Daniel Jones is making more than these 5 quarterbacks combined. First of all, those 5 quarterbacks are still on rookie contracts. Number two, when people say, oh, well, Carr makes 40, Dak makes 40. No. I get it. A lot of this is based on potential. I get it. But that just because, like you said, Donald, just because someone else jumps off a bridge doesn't mean you have to. Now, the only silver lining I will make to that argument, as I've written down, is this. You look at those quarterbacks. I think Stafford's around $40 million. Derek Carr and once again, Dak Prescott, as mentioned. All those QBs, and at this point in the game, the expectations have heightened for the New York Giants. This isn't, no, you cannot have a regression. The playoffs are the bar. That is, the low bar. But the justification that you could make is Carr, Prescott, and Stafford, all quarterbacks that need very good situations around them. O-line have to be at least solid, and wide receiver. So that's the only justification you can make and say, okay, well, this, and this. That's the only justification. Other than that, in terms of the $40 million market argument, it's not necessarily something I'm buying into. So I have I have some potential pros that I'm going to bring up and cons too, but I want to let you handle that.
No, let's hit the pros first of all, because I'm open to both sets of discussions. That's what I'm saying. I think this. Obviously, it's been a Twitter war between Daniel Jones. That he needs to be paid.
We're the level-headed ones.
Listen. I'm more against the idea, but purely because I'm very much a proponent of a general manager coming in and having his guy. As quarterback and refreshing the quarterback clock. I think that was probably the smarter play. But I am open to I'm open to suggestion. I'm open to the idea that maybe this could work. This is a risky move that Joe Shane's done here, because from what I understand, when they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, I think the whole idea was to play out this year and then hit the draft and draft a quarterback. I think that was the original plan. I think they were surprised by how good Daniel Jones was and how quickly he settled into the system and how he was able to elevate the players around him. And I'm saying that as a guy who, is not necessarily rating Daniel Jones much higher than maybe between 12th and 16th or 17th quarterback in the league, but I still think that he did elevate the talent around him, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think the Giants did get a little bit swept up in making the playoffs, and I think that's changed their thinking. I think that by making the playoffs and then winning the first playoff round, I think that changed their thinking going, right, we can actually compete. Listen, time will tell whether that's the smart call. And normally if you go against your gut or you go against your first instincts or your first plan, it's normally not the right thing to do. You should always kind of trust the original vision that you have. But they've obviously seen something in Daniel Jones, in fairness, that they can build around. So I guess the idea is get Daniel Jones locked down, get him some better talent around him, see what he can do. And then we'll take it from there. That's what they're obviously doing. They obviously think that they're closer to competing than if you had me put my hand on the Bible. I think our talent is C- talent, in all honesty, for much of the roster, apart from a couple of cornerstone guys. I think that our incredible coaching staff elevated the talent, and that includes Daniel Jones. So I do think that we kind of overachieved. But that's not a bad thing, and I'm not criticizing the Giants at all. I loved it. But this was a team that all of us expected at best to have 7 wins. So the fact that we got in the playoffs, won the first round, I think that it's kind of I think we've all kind of gotten caught up in the euphoria of it. Um, but it certainly meant that Daniel Jones has been tied down because of it. Would you say that would you say that's probably accurate, or do you think that that isn't the case and that this has been their plan for most of the time?
I can very much agree with you that this was probably not their plan. Um, I think, and I've seen some reports saying that this is like a marathon. I don't think it is. I think it's Brian Dable. No, it's excuse me. Let me reword that. It's Joe Shane trusting Brian Dable's judgment
Okay.
as someone who wants to stay on the same wavelength. Because if you look coming into the season, how many times is it mentioned? And you see those little sneak peeks of, Joe Shane's not really mentioning Daniel Jones as like a core piece to re-sign. He mentioned McKinney, he mentioned Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence. So I think right now he's trusting his head coach's judgment, which obviously you don't want to be on a disconnect, and that obviously goes towards a risk. And this risk, yeah, you could get out in 2 years, but how much damage is it going to do your franchise? And then you have to go to another guy. Now, obviously, that's if it doesn't work out. Um, let's see. Shout out to MH, by the way. But along those lines, now, and I forgot the second half of my comments, but yeah, so pretty much at this point, I think it's just Dable uh, loving Daniel Jones and Joe Shane trusting his judgment. I forgot my other half of the stuff I was going to say, but if you want to go to the comments.
Yeah, let's hit the comments here. MH, crazy to think an old regime quarterback gets a fat contract with the new regime. I have to say, this is new to me too. This is not what I would have expected. Um, don't you think Daniel Jones earned more money, like 400 million? Exactly. Why not make it $1 billion? Hey, if we're stopping at 140, 160, let's give him the whole billion. And while you're at it,
Let's give him the team. Let's give him the
yeah,
entire team. But Shasta Hayes too.
this contract is a good contract. It's a team-friendly contract in regards to cap hit. You'll see next year we got off cheap with a good quarterback. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think I remembered a little bit of what I was going to say as well is you could fidget around with what the expectations were if we were to franchise Daniel Jones or even just go get a quarterback, like Anthony Richardson or Andon Hooker. Right now, the Giants, it looks to be are on the path of doing. Now, I'm not trying to say that they will do this full throttle, but 2017 after, a good 2016, 2021 after a good 2020, I don't want to fall into that lapse again, but the Giants just have to make sure they have to hit on all their picks and keep this process building. Because right now, what the fan base is expecting is something along the lines of 2006 and all these. And I'm not saying they're that type of team, but what I am saying is the expectation now is playoffs. At least get into the playoffs, win a game, maybe win a second game, and then boom, next year, you're probably a Super Bowl contender in 24. We'll see what happens. If that's even the case, I don't know. But as far as, before we get into a couple other things too, no, we know that was a joke, too evil to hope. The Giants
No,
have
I
the
know, man. I know. The Giants have doomed the quarterback market for the Vikings. Cousins will easily. Exactly, man. The thing is, Daniel Jones getting paid more than Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins has got like triple the production than Daniel Jones.
yeah. So, some things with that as well is I'm not going to sit here, and I know where some people might take this the wrong way. I'm not going to be taking it in this fashion. I'm not comparing Daniel Jones to Aaron Judge, but I like to kind of Donald's philosophy before he got pissed off at the Yankees, and I am a little bit too. Is obviously you signed your core player to an extension.
Right.
What your philosophy, and I gave it time as well, is okay. Build a team around him. So I think you could. I'm not saying you can't have an opposite opinion. Listen, I'm not saying that 40 million is fucking justification for Daniel Jones' contract, but I will give him time to improve a little bit. I know that there's a ceiling, and I will give Joe Shane time to build a team around him for the justification of the contract, of course.
No, listen. That's exactly what the cap ramifications of year one of that contract does. It allows us some maneuverability in free agency. Now, I don't think that we're going to be making any headline moves. I think that we could probably fish in the bigger waters in terms of inside linebacker, and that's good news. Um, and and maybe we can have a look at the mid-tier free agent market for a receiver to try and build
We
up
need a
a receiver.
punter.
That goes without saying. But this is obviously what Joe Shane wants to do. He wants to give the continuity a chance with Dable, with Kafka, with the really good offensive system we've got. Jones was getting more and more comfortable within that system. And maybe if you get better players around him that fit the system more dudes like Isaiah Hodgins who were just automatic scheme fits, maybe that raises Daniel Jones' level a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's all you can really hope for. I think if anyone thinks that suddenly Daniel Jones is going to become a top 9, top 10 quarterback, I think you guys are kind of dreaming. I don't think he's that level. But I think that he is got the ability to get you to the playoffs as you already proven last year with not great talent. So I guess if you use that logic with better talent, he should be able to continue that progression a little bit. Now, is that how I build a roster? No. Is this the quarterback who I really want to be locked down to for another 4 years? Absolutely not. I think there's much better talent available. And was this how I would have played this in the offseason? No. Again, I would have transition tagged him. I would have asked him to test the market because guess what? Brian Cashman did exactly the same thing with Aaron Judge. Brian Cashman has done that with basically everyone he's ever come into contact with. He's like, all right, you guys you think you're worth that? Well, how about you test the market and come back to me, right? And as much as I despise Brian Cashman, he's a good businessman. And I think that would have been good business for the Giants
This situation
to do that in this situation because, if you look at around the league, you hear the people coming back to you going, the biggest surprise that people are talking about so far in the combine is that the fact the Giants are even entertaining this contract for Daniel Jones. That has been the overriding conversation around the league with people that have been talking and things like that. That kind of gives you an indication that had Daniel Jones tested free agency, I think he wouldn't have gotten close to $160 million. I think he would have gone tens of $millions less. I can't think of many teams that would have been in the market for him. Let's think of them.
I would say two come to mind. That's another one. I was thinking more along the lines of Indy because Jim Irsay is a pretty interesting owner. And I
know, but they're so high up in the draft. Wouldn't they just be wanting to get CJ Stroud?
I mean, that's a very good point. But I mean, let's see. The Colts are either the number 2 or the number 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an interest. I know that the Bears are looking to trade. They might trade with somebody like, I don't know, Carolina, and then boom, they jump into that slot and get one of the top 2. But Indy never ceases to surprise me. So like they're a team. Carolina, I feel like because they were in the conversation for Derek Carr, and I'm not saying Jones's car, but they were in that quarterback conversation for a little bit. So there's that. So I would say Tampa Bay, Indy, Carolina, and I would cut it off at there.
Well, I don't believe Indy because they're so high up in the draft. Like, why wouldn't you just go and get a quarterback and get a fresh 4 years on the quarterback rookie deal with the high ceiling of a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or even Anthony Richardson? I do agree with you on the Panthers. I think Panthers maybe, and I do think Tampa Bay probably. But I'd cut it off there. I don't think there'd be too much more. And as I say, if the Raiders are willing for them to do that with Lamar Jackson, who is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, in terms certainly more explosive. He might not be a better passer than Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones got a better arm, but I think Lamar has got the higher ceiling. I think we can all agree on that.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I would definitely rate Lamar Jackson better than Daniel Jones. And, some comparisons I could see in the whole contract conversation, but I don't know how much Lamar is legitimate, and I know this is Giants show, but I don't know how much Lamar is legitimately asking for. And I saw a tweet from Ryan Clark on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, what is the world that Daniel Jones is getting paid more than Lamar?" That's because the Ravens don't want to pay Lamar because he is worth. I think he's worth more than 40, maybe even in the 45 range because he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback in this league. But obviously,
But the thing
we'll
is,
see what
if
happens.
with these quarterbacks hitting the market, don't you think that would decrease the value of Daniel Jones?
It's
Because who are the Giants really competing with?
in terms of the Daniel Jones conversation.
No one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not really anyone. Like,
exactly. That's why I would have had him test the market. I think we could have gone a lot cheaper.
yeah,
I think it would have been
yeah.
smarter.
I as I said, I can't. I agree with you. I can't say it's 100% true because of those progressive teams like the Panthers and the Bucks and whatnot. But I agree with you. As I said, I would have given Daniel Jones like 35 because that's what Gino got after 1 year
Yeah,
production. So,
I think
um,
the Geno contract would have been fair. I think like a 3-year deal, maybe front loaded, would
yeah,
probably have been much better because that means that you probably could have gone in and out after one. I don't think there's an out after 1 year. I think there's probably an out after two with Jones. So again, but then we're kind of in this situation where in 2025 the Giants are not going to have any salary cap room because they're going to be on the hook for all of Daniel Jones' guaranteed money, and they have to hope that this team is ready to compete. Because if he craps out after this year, which there's a chance of, not to be negative, but there is as good a chance of it as him progressing. Then what did the Giants do? And they're kind of up against it. So there's, I just, I didn't think, I think that you weigh up the pros and cons, and I think that there's slightly more cons than pros to giving Daniel Jones this contract.
well, the way I see it, and I don't disagree, is there's cons, but there's potential pros. Like there's
Yeah,
more cons. I'm not so I would say worried about it. I'm not really reactionary about it because I do want to see this core of team building. But I think it's all potential if you want to be positive about it. It's all potential. Um, just to run down my list real quick. So cons I'll start with because that's like the flat
yeah,
line, it's right out there. 40 million per, which I don't think Daniel Jones is worth.
nope.
$63 million of a cap hit in 2024 question mark.
Mm-hmm.
If it's with signing bonuses and that doesn't count towards the cap, okay, I'm fine with it. But 63 million for Daniel Jones with all the other contracts we have to sign in 24, not really a fan of it. Once again, that's just a question. We don't know how it's structured, but it could definitely look that way with 19 million this year. And then the ceiling. I mean, we kind of with team building and all these sorts of things. I know Donald's kind of preached it a lot. Daniel Jones is a ceiling. So can he take us to a Lombardi? I know a lot of odds are against it right now, but it kind of looks that way unless Daniel Jones gets his A game up. And even though this is totally, I would say it's off topic, but Hayes references the number 25. You know what I take number 25 for? Not just my favorite player, Mark Teixeira for the Yankees. The amount of touchdowns passing wise Daniel Jones needs to have as a floor. He needs to pass more than 25 touchdowns this year.
Minimum.
There's no doubt about
And
that.
that's
That's
passing touchdowns. I'm not even
yeah,
interested in rushing touchdowns. I'm passing him. It needs to be 25 passing touchdowns before we even look at his rushing touchdowns. That
yeah,
needs
no
to be
more. Yeah, and listen, look, I mean, there to a certain extent, you could sit here and say, well, this, and this. I'm really leaning off. I'm not going off excuses no more. No, none of that because he's got this big contract now. You know, he's in that $40 million range where once again the 1% of excuses you can make is he's in the $40 million range, he needs this, he needs this. Well, guess what, they signed him that contract. But for con Q is what the little section I have here, which could be a con, but it also could be just a general question. Will this infringe future wise on roster building? Next year 63 million, that's possible. You mentioned obviously in 25, we don't even know what the draft is going to look like quarterbacks if the Giants fuck up this situation or Daniel Jones fucks up whatever it is. Will you be able to pay the money in the first 2 years guaranteed and then, basically not have anything on the hook that infringes on 2025, 26, and all that other stuff. So that's one of my questions. And then potential pros, $19 million for 2023, but that's only a pro if you don't have so much next year, because I'm always a guy that looks forward.
Yeah.
Potential to improve. I think Daniel Jones could do better with some solid wide receivers around him, but they need to show it to us. That's potential again. Get out after 2 seasons. All the money, it looks to be guaranteed within the first 2 years or maybe even the 4. But either way, everybody's categorizing it as a 2-year contract. And then QB, in the $40 million range. You look at that range of quarterbacks, and once again, I don't necessarily use, Carr got paid 40. Oh, Prescott got paid 40. Oh, this guy got paid 40. Stafford. I don't use that as an excuse, but the silver lining you will create, that some people will create, is those quarterbacks still need at least a solid O-line. They still need very good wide receivers. Kirk Cousins also still needs that type of stuff, but they still put up about 23, 24, 25 touchdowns, not in the perfect situations. I didn't like Derek Carr's play this year. I also didn't like his head coach, but he still put up probably 24 touchdowns passing wise.
I've got some good chat here. Afghanistan, baby. Oh yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if some desperate team would give him around what we gave him, if not a little more. It's a little more than I ideally want to pay, but there's quite a few quarterbacks like that. But yeah, so what I would say to that is, there's a good chance that maybe the Panthers, maybe Tampa Bay would have, even the Raiders would have jumped in and overpaid. But guess what? That puts the ball in the Giants' court, because then the Giants can decide whether they want to match it or not. And if they don't choose to match it, then there's no downside to getting 2 first-round picks that you could then use to further augment your roster, because let's face it, we have a lot of holes to fill. And I think our progression was schematic and coaching based. I think Wink Martindale raised the ceiling of our defense significantly. And I think Kafka scheme certainly raised Daniel Jones' ceiling. And Brian Dable's Coach of the Year coaching, which was just freaking off the charts, incredible, got us to where we are, rather than, having this deep, great roster. I think they're cornerstone guys. I don't think Daniel Jones is a cornerstone guy. I think our cornerstone guys is Dexter Lawrence. I think our cornerstone guys is Andrew Thomas, and maybe Dory Jackson, and possibly Saquon Barkley. I'm not quite sure if there's any other cornerstone guys that we have on the roster. Alex, would you say there's any more?
Yeah, I mean, I would just go with, first of all, I don't know if you mentioned him, but I wouldn't even go. Maybe I shouldn't have presumed it before. I don't know if McKinney is for sure a cornerstone guy.
I don't think so either.
Because, as I said, year 1, he was injured for the first part. He broke his hand. Second year, great production under Patrick Graham, 5 interceptions. This past year, I mean, he obviously had the accident in the first year, but the second half of the season. But the first half, it was what are you expecting out of him? Are you expecting more of a tackles type, tackle for loss in the box? Or are you expecting a type of, interceptions, kind of like what he was with Patrick Graham in the second year? I think we're going to be expecting kind of a box safety type thing. And we need somebody that, can play deep safety, something that we're going to have to get in the next 2 years, draft or free agent wise. So Xavier McKinney right now, I mean, that's still a looming conversation. So Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, and I'd probably, for the time being, also you have to include Graham Gano. And then, if you're still saying young, Saquon Barkley for the time being as well.
I agree with you regarding Xavier McKinney, because that's going to be a conversation that's going to be worth having very soon. I like him. I read him a lot. But I've always got a certain number, a certain value attached to safety, and that's not something that you want to overpay for. Remember when Jamal Adams was wanting a massive contract of the Jets? It wasn't smart to pay him, and they did the right thing by trading him.
And to add as well is the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, obviously they paid Marlon Humphrey, they paid this guy, they paid Marcus Peters, whatever. But you look at that, and I'm not trying to go off past precedents, but did they really pay a top level safety Tony Jefferson, Chuck Clark, Geno Stone they drafted. They didn't really pay I mean, obviously, look, McKinney's a very solid player. But once again, if he's not getting a few interceptions a year at least, is it worth paying?
Well, listen, we got Love in the mid rounds, and he's been a solid NFL safety. So listen, you can do that. You can go in the second or third rounds, and you can get yourself a very solid safety, in my opinion. And that's probably going to be a conversation that we're going to have down the line because there's going to be a crunch, especially with Daniel Jones' contract. There's no way that we're going to be able to pay the going rate for a lot of these guys that we want to get doubled down on. Like Dexter Lawrence, I'm pretty sure they will be wanting between the $18 and $20 million a year. So there's going to be things there's going to be a crunch eventually, and that's why it does tie into this Daniel Jones thing, and that's why I do believe that it would have been a smarter play to thank him, appreciate him, but still have an eye out on the draft and either this year or next year. So if you tag him, I don't think there was a downside to tagging him. Like the non-exclusive tag was not that expensive. It was what, 30 million, 29, 30 million?
Franchise, well, all I know is franchise tag 30, 29.5. That's the transition tag. So yeah, around that.
So okay, it's 10 million more than what we're paying him, but at least we're not locked down on him. And I would have done that, and I still think that we would have had enough by reworking, say, Adoree Jackson's contract and Leonard Williams' contract to attack free agency, but at least you're not on the hook with Daniel Jones for 4 years. Because I just don't know if this was the right way to go. But we've done it. We've made the decision. We've jumped all in. We've jumped in the deep end. We fully believe that Daniel Jones is the guy, and I guess we just have to see how he does.
Yeah. So real quickly, just to reference three things real quick. As far as Hayes' question, I would prefer Jones at 40 million. And two other things as well, just two statements by the Giants, one by Joe Shane. As far as the 4-year contract for Daniel Jones, we were all pleased that we're able to come to an agreement prior to today's deadline. This gives us greater ability to continue to build a roster. And as far as Daniel Jones, he said, I said after the season, I love this place. I've really enjoyed my time here and I want to be here. I have great respect for this organization, the Maras, the Tishes, my coaches and teammates. I am happy we were able to come to an agreement.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, how easy did he make it on the Giants? He didn't exactly make things very easy for us. He ran it. There was 2 minutes left before the deadline and played hardball with us.
Now he's got to prove it.
But listen, there'll be a lot of fans that'll be really excited about this. So maybe let's look at some of the positives around it. So I guess some of the pros that you gave, the flexibility in year one. Maybe we can go in a free agency, get a receiver, then maybe draft an Addison or Flowers or Tank Dell in the first round. And hey, maybe rebuild your wide receiver room. What are you kind of thinking about what our plans are going to be with the first round of the draft? You think it's going to be a receiver?
I would think so. I don't think it's good. I think there's no linebacker unless it's Drew Sanders you select in that range that's like ideally fit the Giants. I would say wide receiver. If you have an Osiris Torrance there, they might take him to beef up the interior, but they might wait till round 2, depending, because I mean it is a deep class, and you do still have Glowinski, and I would like to think that Ben Bredesen and Azudu they're also very intrigued by. So. But then again, they should take Torrance if he's there. John Michael Schmitz, maybe in the first round as well. But I would think wide receiver. I wouldn't want them to reach. But once again, I mean, we'll see who they're enthralled by. But I do think wide receiver, and at some point linebacker.
Good question here. Are you guys sad you didn't go after Rodgers, or are you excited he might be a Jet soon? Well, Alex's brother and our co-host Luca is a massive Jet fan. So I'm going to ask Alex because it's more pertinent to yourself. How do you feel about the Aaron Rodgers talks?
So I mean, I've seen like, the news about the Jets progressing towards the deal, and then them going out to California basically to meet him and try to get things done. As far as going after Rodgers for the Giants, I mean, it's not a fit. He's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, no question. But it's just like, what's the like? I mean, comes here for a year. This team is still building. You're not going. He is probably coming into a similar situation as he was with the Packers. So that's for as far as the Giants go. I think I think he might actually be a Jet. And my brother has already pre-warned me that in the case that he is a Jet, he's going to sit there and laugh at me on stream. And I'm like, I don't care. Listen, Daniel Jones got $40 million. Do I agree with it? No, but I'm going to sit here and trash talk you because you guys are Jet fans. So it is what it is.
Well, that's the one thing that we do have over them is the fact that they're Jets, and they always will find a way to stumble and fall.
Yeah.
And break their ass. That's just what the Jets do. So that will never change as far as I'm concerned. Like, you can have all kinds of the best, and they will still do that because we've already seen it. Remember when they got Le'Veon Bell? How did that go? Like they've got Brett Favre, and he was good for about a year, and then that fell apart. I mean, that's just what the Jets do, man. So it doesn't matter. I'm not overly concerned by anything that the Jets do, but if you take a step back and say, "Wow, the Jets have Aaron Rodgers, and the Giants have spent $1 billion on Daniel Jones," the NFL world has a right to laugh at us a little bit. Just calling it a buck because.
I mean, listen, the outside. I said it this week when I was debating with somebody. The NFL world, I think they'll always laugh at us. If you want my honest opinion, until we win
appreciate it.
Well, we're responding to you, Luca, because you literally told me that you're gonna laugh at us on stream for sitting here and the Daniel Jones stuff. So you want us to sit pat and say no, we're wrong. The Jets are gonna be better than us. No, it has to be fun. Anyway,
so that's for the trash talk. He feels out the same old Jets argument. Listen, I just gave you as much of a compliment as I could possibly give the Jets. If you take a step back and the team in green has a far better quarterback than the team in blue, then
that will admit
have a right to troll us a little bit. I think that's fair.
No. But what I was saying was, until we win a Super Bowl or something along those lines, even if we're a contender, I don't think that anyone's going to respect us. And there was that thing about Orlovsky this week that, people were kind of praising his word and, singing his praises. I'm like, you know what? I get it. I don't think DJ's worth 4, contract with the 4 in the front of it. But I'm not listening to Orlovsky either because they always laugh at us. It's like we are, and I know this is just a generic take, but we are the fan base. We pay the money for the tickets, the season tickets, the merchandise, the food, all that stuff that goes into it. And I think we are the voice of the fan base. Well, we're the voice of the Giants, if anything like that. So I think our opinion is the only one that matters, aside from the organization itself.
I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers will be good for the Jets. But
if he does go to the Jets, I'm not going to say he's going to suck. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I think he'll be fine, but I'm not quite sure for the longevity of it. But listen, the Jets have to have something to talk about because they've been irrelevant for so long. Not made the playoffs since forever, and the Giants have just won a first-round playoff. So we've got that over them, plus the million championships over year none. So obviously got that as well. But no. Listen. I don't love the fact that Daniel Jones is our long-term quarterback and the Jets are going to get a legit Hall of Fame quarterback, probably. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to swallow. And this year's going to be fun. I think it's going to be good, though, because I think the Jets are probably going to make the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback.
And it's to be fair, even though we're trash talking the Jets, A, it's all for fun. B, I mean, it is kind of better when the New York teams are actually solid. There was that little high we had in the beginning of the season. I think both teams were like 5-2, 4-3. Listen, we enjoyed that. The Jets and Giants were back for a little bit. Both hit a slump. One recovered, one didn't. So,
well, that's right. That's right. I mean, we did say like at the start of the year that we thought that the Jets would actually go a little bit better than the Giants. So, it comes down to coaching at the end of the day. But it looks like Luka is amped up for Rodgers. We'll see how it goes. But I do think that he will end up in the Jets. But anyway, back to the Giants. We've not discussed about Saquon Barkley yet. And
yes.
For me, he was my priority going in. I know I'm in the minority with that regard, but it's not necessarily because I'm against what the general consensus is. And that obviously the general consensus is you don't pay running backs long term. That's just not what you should do. You should never probably give them a second contract for the most part because of the fact that there's severe tread on their tires. And it's such a position that is replaceable. We'll just look at Pacheco and the 7th round for the Chiefs. I get all of that. I get the fact that there's injury concerns, especially like one tackle could injure any running back that you invest a lot of money in. And that's obviously a risk that you take. But I think Saquon Barkley is the only one of the very few people in the league where I would have the counter argument and say that he's much more than that. And I stand by that. I think that he carried the Giants offense up to and including the Texans game. And I think that what's happened in general is he then slowed down because we overused him, overworked him. He got a little bit hurt and he got a little tired. I think that had something to do with it. And then obviously we started to amend the game plan to have Daniel Jones start throwing the ball more on 1st and 2nd down. And obviously that helped us. And then obviously Daniel Jones then took that next level. But until then, the conversation was, and we've had this conversation all the time on Big Blue and the Bronx, when are they going to start trusting Daniel Jones? And that's part of the reason why I'm not on board with this contract. Because for 2/3 of this season, the conversation was, why don't we trust Daniel Jones? Why don't we trust Daniel Jones? It's not like Daniel Jones just picked up the ball in week 1 and just started throwing 400-yard passes and shit and just balled out and just turned into Aaron Rodgers. No. For about 2/3 of the year, he was an average functional quarterback, which was getting carried by Saquon Barkley. Truth. Facts. Look at the stats. He barely cleared 200 yards passing most of the year. Now, part of it is personnel. Part of it is the offensive line. But most of it was because the game plan was Saquon Barkley. And we rode him like Seabiscuit. And Saquon Barkley stepped up and he carried this team. Without Saquon Barkley, team doesn't touch playoffs. If we just went all in on Daniel Jones and we had some average running back in there, this team doesn't win 4 games. I take that to the bank, right? So that's why I would have made Saquon Barkley more of a priority. He is our one offensive star, and I would have worked harder to come to an agreement with him. And that's not something that I'm going to change my mind on. And I don't need, certain stats to tell me otherwise. I think the eye test, I think Saquon Barkley passed the eye test. I think he was our main guy. And I just do genuinely believe that a lot of Giant fans got a little bit overly excited by Daniel Jones going in beast mode for 4 games at the end of the year. Because in general, I think like he was a functional quarterback apart from the Vikings and Colts games. And maybe like one other game where he was really good too. But he also got completely and utterly destroyed by the Eagles, but that seems to have been conveniently forgotten about. But the one guy that did turn up most weeks was Saquon Barkley. So I'm not quite sure why he wasn't a priority. What are your thoughts on some of those things that I said?
So Saquon is the better impact. He's the bigger impact for the New York Giants. I absolutely agree with that. With that being said, I do kind of envision Joe Shane's prioritization towards the quarterback position and trying to get Jones done. And like, if they think he's their guy, they just have to justify it, but then they got him. As far as Saquon throughout the year, I mean, first half of the season, I didn't appreciate the fact that they rode him so much because it kind of went into the ground in the second half a little bit. Um, the Bears game he carried, the Titans game he carried. There were other games where, he had some solid yards. A lot. Some of it also was the defense, as we touched on as well. But I think there's two things that come out of this: one positive and one just you need to prove it. The you need to prove it part is you need to start next year, 2023, with the ball in Daniel Jones' hands. None of this crap about we're going to be a run first offense. No. You pay him $40 million. You have to have him as the forefront of the offense. Not saying you can't use Saquon, all these different things, but none of this. And I know they won't say this in a press conference. We don't trust Daniel Jones. Well, we have to see that you don't trust him and why you don't trust him. But that's because if they hide him from us, they're only hurting themselves. So there's that. That's my other thing. But anyway, my other thing about Saquon Barkley as well is, obviously there's the talk about the running back, the shelf life, the Isaiah Pacheco's of the world, whatever. Is I think Saquon Barkley, in terms of his prime and all these different things, in an ideal situation, Daniel Jones is the future, the Giants quarterback, whatever, is he could kind of be a bridge. Now, I'm not saying bridge towards another running back because there's not going to be another Saquon Barkley in this league, the impact that he leaves. But let's just say you have Saquon signed to a 3-year extension or something along those lines. You bring in a very talented receiving core, get maybe another tight end, then Saquon maybe retires or goes to another team. That's still a very good situation for Daniel Jones so that he's not the focus and defenses are like, yeah, let's just feast in on Daniel Jones. So I kind of like that bridge mentality if that's what the Giants are envisioning with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I just think that I'm not sure what kind of message it sends to Saquon Barkley that he was kind of second choice through the whole negotiations. I know obviously you want to choose the quarterback first, but as I say, this was an anomaly where in this situation, the running back is the star and the quarterback is the average player. And I just think that it's not a message that I really want to send to Saquon Barkley, considering what he means to the organization. Shirt sales. He's the face of the Giants, not Daniel Jones. And I think that we probably should have tried to come to an agreement and then tag Daniel Jones. And this is why I want to pick up on Hayes' comment. Obviously, Hayes, love you, man. Donald, I think if you paid Jones $25, you wouldn't be on board. You don't like Jones, and that's okay. Everyone has a right to their opinion, at least for now. Well, that's where I actually want to disagree with you on. I did actually say after the playoffs that we should bring back Daniel Jones. But this was before the $40 million was a conversation and the $160 million was a conversation. I thought in my own stupidity that Daniel Jones would have sat down with the front office and then been like, I want a team-friendly deal. Let's try and get this done ASAP to give you guys plenty of time to build a roster around me. I thought that's what would have happened. I think that's what should have happened, and I wouldn't have paid him any more than $30 million. Otherwise, I would have had him test free agency with the tag. That's what I've said all along. It's not that I hate Daniel Jones, and it's not that I am not completely appreciative of the year that he had. Man, he went beast mode for like the last third of the season, and it was awesome. So it's not the case that I'm not appreciative and I don't respect him and I don't think that he's a good quarterback. It's just there's levels here, and there's also just the fact that, like, in my opinion, the way to build a roster is to reset the rookie quarterback clock. That's just the way I'd like to build a roster with a new general manager and with the kind of holes that we have. But we've chosen not to do that. But I certainly respect everyone's opinion that would tell me I'm wrong, and that's great. I hope I'm wrong. And listen, I was wrong this year. I didn't think Daniel Jones was going to be this good this year. So, hey, there's maybe a chance I'm going to be wrong again this year.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Jones justifies this contract for the front office because they're rooting for him as much as we are. We're all rooting for success, but opinions differ. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens, of
that's
course.
That's the fun aspect of it.
Yeah.
So we've got some things coming up. Alex, will you give me your final thoughts here on some of the things that's happening on the Big Blue in the Bronx channel?
Yeah, so I mean, I know Hayes is a big supporter of ours. I appreciate him coming over because I did put in the community notes that we were going live on here. And if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to Nerding Out Sports. Um, but we got a giant stream on Saturday night, 8:30. Entertainer and Diggy for sure are coming on. So we're gonna be discussing the Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley stuff, free agency, draft, any questions you guys have as well. So it's gonna be really fun. We got the Dead Red podcast on Thursdays. It's a baseball related podcast, mostly Yankees, Red Sox, but we talk all baseball as well. Donald is a co-host of the Friday Night Knicks pod on Fridays with Luca. We're hoping to have the call-in show on Sunday at 8:30, so that's going to be fun. And then Monday is a free agency preview of Boys in the Big Apple on Boys in the Big Apple. So a lot of fun happening, and we're on the way to 1K subs. So appreciate the support in the chat. These guys, Rob and Donald, do a very good job over here, and they really do work hard.
Yeah, we appreciate Alex jumping in and helping out. Hopefully, we'll get to see Rob in the next, maybe the next podcast, or certainly the podcast after. We're hearing positive things, so I think I think things are. Certainly, we'll send our fingers crossed and our prayers to Rob's family. Hope all is going well. And once again, yeah. So there's exciting times coming up for the Giants. One thing we can all agree on, whether you're for the $40 million contract per year on Daniel Jones or not, the one thing we can all agree on is now we do have some flexibility. And I'm excited for free agency because, like, hopefully we can get into getting a really good Mike linebacker in there. I would love a wide receiver like a McCole Hardman or something like that if he's at an affordable rate. We're going to wait and see, and then we'll hit the draft. Hopefully, we'll draft a receiver in the first round. All that, and then this will be a much more positive Donald, and that's what everybody would want to see. You don't want to see me unhappy. I don't like to see me unhappy because I love Big Blue. I love Big Blue Baby, and Big Blue Baby made me a very, very happy man this year. So let's roll. I guess what we're going to do is roll it back. And Joe Shane's like, let's roll it back and let's do it again next year. So, hey, if it works, all the better. And we'll take it from there. But as always, do appreciate everyone in the chat. I think we had a good chat today. Alex, thanks so much for jumping in. And yes, like and subscribe to Big Blue in the Bronx because we are going to hit 1K and it's going to be fire. We've got merch. We got pods coming out of every year. We got all kinds of, we would do so much work on that channel. So yeah, please do like and subscribe to our channel over on Big Blue in the Bronx. And of course, Nerding Out Sport. Well, this is how we will close out the deal. Thanks so much for everyone. Let's go Giants. Let's go Saquon. Let's go Daniel Jones. We're even saying that. And, hats off to everybody. And, yeah, prayers up to Rob. Hopefully we see you guys soon. And let's go Big Blue.